I call the honourable member Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to take a call, but before I do, I just would like to remind Damien O'Connor of Speaker's ruling 1352. In particular, well, I'm very sure he did it extremely well. In a general debate, it's a general custom not to interrupt the Speaker, particularly with a personal explanation until the end of it, and I'm sure Mr O'Connor knew that. But it was even more interesting and more insightful to see exactly what he had to say. In fact, the half of a story that he wanted to say, because he knows and wants to say deep down that he supports Bathurst and he supports their efforts to create jobs, hundreds of jobs, on the Denniston Plateau. And he didn't want to say it. I find that a bit sad, really, because I want to go back to what Mr Parker said about the mining policies of Labor and the monetary policies of Labor. He said two things. The Labor Party's mining policy is very clear. We've been unequivocal about it for years. And yet he spent 5 minutes confusing us all about what that might have been. And all Mr O'Connor and all Mr Parker had to say was, we support Bathurst.
That's right.
3 little words that said, we support new jobs and growth in jobs on the West Coast. But oh no, they couldn't bring themselves to say that. They're probably standing in line with the Greens, who want a $67 million subsidy to help out Solid Energy in those difficult times. We had a very clear explanation about why Bathurst can succeed, where Solid Energy at Spring Creek would struggle. And I just want to turn on now to the second part of Mr Parker's speech on MPS, on the monetary policy that Labor actually haven't revealed yet. In 2 years since they said, no, we're going to unhook ourselves from the monetary policy accord, we have absolutely no idea what Labor's policy is. However, we do know what Mr Parker thinks about inflation. That he thinks it's not the evil that it used to be, that perhaps we can somehow broaden our inflationary parameters. But I want to just explain that I was working for a bank giving retail loans to mortgages in the 1980s, where the rates were 19.5% and 20.5%. Remember those days? Do you know what the exchange rate was then? Does the member know what the exchange rate was? I have absolutely no idea, and nobody remembers. But they do remember what interest rates they were paying and what inflationary pressures created the spiral of higher interest rates, higher inflation, even higher interest rates, and on it went. And Mr Peters believes he can intervene in the exchange rate by taking an economic... Well, the member says 1980s policies. Now, who was in power in the 1980s? Well, he probably was. He probably was, to a national family, I understand. How many of the Labor government, the fourth Labor government's policies, did the Clark government reverse? None. Not a single one. They disown the Labor government of the 1984 to 1990 period, but don't reverse a single one of the monetary and fiscal and asset sale policies. In fact, they continued them by stealth, I suggest. But I want to go back to Mr Peters, who says that an economic crapshoot is possible, that all we have to do is invest in the New Zealand dollar, and he referred to an example that was done in 2004 or 5, I think was it 7, where $497 million was made. What are the chances that $497 million could have been lost? It's about 50-50. It was an economic crapshoot that the Reserve Bank came out on top of and has not repeated, because it realised the folly of trying to do that in the face of the major economies who print money. You know which economies print money? The United States and Zimbabwe. The United States have a tanking dollar and Zimbabwe has hyperinflation. And I would suggest that any move from the very fair and tight monetary policy framework we had would not only damage our export growth, but it will damage jobs, and that is the purpose of government, to create jobs and growth and to steer this economy through very challenging fiscal times. And I think this government is doing an excellent job. We hear a lot about the losses, and there will be losses even in the best of times. There will be changes in manufacturing infrastructure, in technology, in food production, but there will always be jobs gained. And there are 57,000 jobs, I think, already created in the last couple of years, more to come. And I think government is very much on track in that regard.
The time for this debate has expired, and therefore I invite honourable members to turn their attention to Government Order